So with me now to discuss, senior legal policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation, Amy Swearer. Amy, good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Amy, did you find this odd that Everytown for Gun Safety, that's the official name of the super PAC, it's backed by Michael Bloomberg, that they barely mentioned gun control in their ad against Joni Ernst?
Yeah, so if anyone is not following Stephen Gutowski over at the Washington Free Beacon, he has had some phenomenal articles about this in covering just all of these issues generally. So on the one hand, it's not unusual for some of these ads to cover a multitude of issues, but it is fairly unusual for singular focus groups like Everytown to go after a wide variety of issues, especially when they are so singularly focused on the issue of gun control. And I think, granted, these ads are being run in more conservative places like Iowa. I think there was another one in North Carolina where sometimes you want to temper that with a more conservative base, and I think gun control isn't necessarily going to win there, but I think it's something that's probably going to continue in possibly even more left-leaning states.
Well, it's interesting because in 2018, in the lead up to those midterm elections, we saw the March for Our Lives. We saw in the wake of Parkland, we saw a huge push by the Democrats for sweeping gun control, like gun confiscation level gun control that they just dubbed a mandatory gun buyback. But even Michael Bloomberg, and this is his pet issue, he funds this group. When he spoke at the DNC, even not talking just to a more conservative base in Iowa or North Carolina, he didn't talk about gun control at all in his speech.
Yeah, and this is something, again, I think this reflects the changing dynamics of 2020. 2018, as you rightfully noted, there were a lot of races where gun control was a main, if not the main issue. And yet here in 2020, I mean, yes, it has come up a couple of times, but I think part of this reason that a lot of candidates are wanting to avoid this, why groups like Everytown might be trying to pack in some other things with it, is that we've seen some phenomenal statistics come out of 2020 that seem to indicate a changing electorate. We have 5 million new gun owners. We have had months now of people flocking to gun stores, a lot of them for the first times in more liberal types of states where you have people who had presumptions about how easy it was to get a gun who are now finding out, well, even though there are riots happening tonight, I have to wait 10 days to get this gun. And I voted for that law because I was convinced by groups like Everytown that this was a good idea. And so, again, I think a lot of this is just the changing dynamics of what we're seeing in 2020.
And so talk about that, the changing dynamics. I mean, first we saw the COVID lockdowns, which are depriving people of their rights to life, liberty, and property, essentially. We're also seeing these riots destroying businesses, and we're seeing the violent crime rates in inner cities like Chicago and New York, especially. We've highlighted those two cities recently on our show. Skyrocket in the wake of Defund the Police. People, especially women, I think, are no longer confident. Women and minority communities are no longer confident that under Democrat leadership, they will be protected by police. They feel that they have to take that into their own hands. Is this surge in gun ownership due to one or more of those factors, or all contributing together?
No, I think it's a confluence of all of those very important factors. You're right. We've had sort of violent riots across the city, across many cities in this country. And then even before that, you had just sort of the chaos and that feeling of instability that came with coronavirus, with a number of police departments in major cities being decimated, having their resources cut. And then on top of that, seeing the violence and the riots. So there's just a lot of these feelings of chaos and feelings that the police are not going to be there. And then on top of that, once you start getting these reports of people being unable to find ammunition, being unable to find guns, those people who are sort of on the edge are going, I guess I better look at getting this now because I may not be able to get them, in a week or 2 weeks or next month. So again, it's just a lot of factors coming together to change really the reality. And I think that's reflected in the gun control issue being backed off of even by gun control groups.
Yeah, gun control groups recognize that the American people treasure and value our right to keep and bear arms. But this is also a really sneaky tactic because their agenda, Everytown for Gun Safety's agenda, is massive gun control. They are pushing candidates, even if they're pretending that it's because of other issues, they're pushing candidates who they know will vote for very strict gun control at a federal level in Congress. And so people shouldn't be fooled by this. They should do their research. And again, you said this before, and I'll repeat it. Kudos to Stephen Gutowski at the Free Beacon for revealing this story. It's really good information for voters leading up to the election. Amy, thanks for being on the show.